Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 32. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. Dave, have we been able to try to get past this ugly Bills loss and everything that comes with it? I'm still trying to watch the All-22 and see if I can find any glimmers of hope, and I'm coming up empty.
Yeah, especially after that game there, and even Tyler Wise, does the turning point. That was a quick turning point in that game on Sunday there, and you look at the tape and you try to find some positives in there, and there were, and I talked about a few, in my terrible take on Tuesday there, just kind of a generalization on Kenny Pickett. There was some good in there. Obviously, it's not anything that's going to get him to the Pro Bowl there, and just a general overview I was trying to state in that take was, it's way too early to make sweeping projections about what this kid is and isn't and all. But I did see a quarterback in there that in that game with several positives and, sticking in the pocket and accuracy. And I also saw a quarterback that had moxie in the second half when, the game was over. He was still competing there, although some of his teammates didn't help him out for a good portion of the game there. But there were minor positives, I think, to grab from that tape there. But you're right. Overall, it's a mess. And offensive line, when it comes to the run blocking, was a mess. Obviously, some of the, play calling in there and situationally wasn't great. And then defensively, man, just, blown up, big play after big play and breakdowns and missed assignments in there. And it did make it hard to watch.
Before we get too deep into reviewing the Bills game, let's do some housekeeping. First, the Pittsburgh Steelers making a relatively minor move yesterday, signing David Anini, the outside linebacker, to the practice squad. He was released on Saturday to make room for the veteran outside linebacker Ryan Anderson. And so basically just a swap there, Anderson for Anini. So he remains on the team, but on the practice squad. And then Mike Tomlin holding his Tuesday press conference, going through the injury roundup heading into the week. First injury report dropping today on Wednesday. Unfortunately, Dave, a pretty long list of names that Tomlin mentioned that we can probably expect to see in some capacity on today's report, including cornerback Cam Sutton with the hamstring injury he's been dealing with for a couple of weeks now. Minka Fitzpatrick, same with that knee injury. Levi Wallace and Pat Freiermuth both in concussion protocol. Akella Witherspoon with the hamstring, although Tomlin said he expects Witherspoon to begin working this week. Larry Ogunjobi with the back, Zach Gentry with a knee, and Montravius Adams with a hip. And so lots of injuries there, pretty concentrated to defensive line, the secondary, and tight end.
Yeah, it's not something that you want, especially on a defensive side when you got Tom Brady coming to town, right? Right. And especially on the heels of everything that we just opened with, we're talking about, the defensive breakdowns and all. And obviously TJ Watt's not going to be back this week. So within that, I mean, if you don't get pressure on Tom Brady, are you going to do you really want to play zone against him? I mean, we got plenty of time to break that down ahead of time, but these injuries are impactful. What's going to happen with Freiermuth? What's going to happen with Levi Wallace? Both those guys in the concussion protocol. And obviously that sector of the game is magnified right now. And we saw the Steelers, err on, I guess, more on the side of caution there Well, I mean, he couldn't get out of protocol, I guess, plain and simple, talking about Terrell Edmunds this past week. The good news is it sounds like Edmunds is trending in the right direction there, and I would think, barring a setback with him, they will have him back this week against the Dolphins there. But going to be interesting, too, especially with Freiermuth's concussion history of what happens to him this week. But it is a long laundry list, and I would imagine, when the Wednesday report is released, that there's going to be quite a few did not practices in there.
Right. And I imagine Saturday will be fairly busy when it comes to roster elevations and things like that. So, yeah, Edmonds probably will play. Witherspoon sounds like he has a shot. So they potentially will get a bit healthier, but they're kind of, half of one or 6 of one, half dozen the other in terms of getting a couple secondary guys back, maybe losing some guys in that process as well. So we'll just see what Wednesday says. And by the time we reconvene on Friday, may have a bit better idea on who will play and who may not. So as I mentioned, Mike Tomlin.
You think Sutton's going to play?
I don't know. I mean, he probably shouldn't have played against the Bills, to be honest, with the hamstring groin injury that he re-aggravated in the first half. So it may be smart just to shut that guy down for at least a week, but he's a pretty tough dude, so we'll just have to wait and see. Minka should play. Gentry probably will play. Adams will probably play. From there, I'm not sure about the other guys.
Yeah, I got you.
As I mentioned, Mike Tomlin holding his Tuesday press conference. Frankly, it wasn't as exciting as I thought it might be coming off of a bad loss. I don't know really what I expected, any sort of rallying cry. Tomlin acknowledged the place that the Steelers are in and admitted that it's going to take more than one good practice or even, hypothetically beating the Bucs this week to get this team back on track. So there was an admission. This is a long process to dig out of the deep hole the Pittsburgh's found themselves in. So you can appreciate that. What else did Tomlin say that caught your attention, Dave?
Obviously he was pressed on comments that he made after the game on Sunday there, talking about no stone unturned and potential, and that means everybody, coaching staff. I forget the exact, kind of way that he phrased it there, but obviously, and as we said on the Monday show, by the time that one, by the time we got done recording that one, no changes had been announced at that point, and I think it was people were hoping Santa Claus was coming that night, but or that day, and it obviously didn't happen. And is it a week to week situation here now, especially when it comes to a guy like Matt Canada? I don't know, but once again, I go back to the fact that this team just doesn't have a history of firing, guys really. Coordinator specifically in except special teams coordinator, I think, but mid-season there. So if it's as bad as it was, this past Sunday against the Bills, again, when you talk about the game on Sunday against the Buccaneers, I don't know, maybe they look to it, but he did kind of walk it back a little bit, did he not?
Right, and he basically said on Tuesday what I interpreted him saying right after the game on Sunday, that whenever you lose that badly, everything's on the table. You're willing to look at everything, but it did not. He was not guaranteeing.
That was a global response, right?
Right. That was. I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say no. We're just going to keep it open ended because we just got our butts kicked. And to say that no, we're not going to make a change is probably foolish to do. But it did not guarantee the change would come. And from a depth chart perspective, it's essentially the same. Again, I'm not beholden to the depth chart, nor is the team. I believe they did have the Marvin Leal ahead of Loudermilk, which we kind of knew that based on how the first month had gone. So that's one minor change that I believe appeared on the depth chart, but I'm not surprised.
The depth chart finally caught up with real time. It's like
right.
It's like the NFL PA salary cap report, right? It lags a few days behind real time there. So yeah, a couple of chairs moved around on the deck of the Titanic, huh?
Exactly. There you go. But yeah, I can't even remember the last time they had fired any coach mid-season. I mean, Adrian Clem left, but I wouldn't call that a firing. Even as you referenced, Hal Everest, that was, I believe, before the season, like days before the season. So technically it's not an in-season fire. And as you've talked about, Ray Sherman was potentially relieved of duties and then let go after the year. I know that Jack Bicknell Jr. basically became the assistant O-line coach midway through his 1 year in Pittsburgh, and Sean Surratt basically ran that room. But in terms of guys who were actually fired, I'm coming up empty over the last 2 decades.
Mm-hmm. And you would, if Mike Tomlin decided that he needed that Matt Canada wasn't the answer, you would think that Rooney would say, do what you got to do? Or do you think it's deeper than that?
No, I think Rooney would allow that. The thought would be, would Rooney ever come down and say, listen, Mike, we got to make a change here? I think if anything, that may be where firing would come from. Or Omar, right. But certainly if Rooney says it, then his word goes.
Right. But for now, he's not shooting any. What provoked the shooting a hostage comment is Matt? you had a great diehard.
Thank you.
Set up that that tweet that you had on Tuesday there.
Well, Tomlin's comment, whenever asked about, basically was asked, are you going to fire anybody? Are you specifically implying, are you going to fire Matt Canada? And Tomlin said he's not going to make change for the sake of change. He's not going to shoot a hostage, and which is a heck of a quote to start with. And then my later thought was that Matt Canada is a hostage in the way that technically Ellis from Die Hard was a hostage, where he is technically a hostage, but no one really likes him. And if he dies, you kind of go, all right, that's fine. That's kind of exciting. So that's Matt Canada right now. He's Ellis.
Yeah, I was proud of you for referencing a some pop culture movie related in there.
He's going, Tomlin, Booby, I'm your white knight. That's what he's doing.
Yeah. White knight, all right, for sure. And I would imagine that his press conference on Thursday will be, if it's possible, even less entertaining. It'll be a lot of the same stuff. Got to do better. It's on me. I appreciate the question.
Yeah. Got to score more points.
Got to score more. Right. We know that. Got to, there we go. We just basically saved ourselves some time on Friday there, I think, in recapping that. But what else did Mike Tomlin have to say? Najee,
not a whole lot.
The Warren and the Najee comments, I guess.
Right. Was asked about Warren's role and Najee's play. And to Najee, basically Tomlin saying that his play is reflective of the entire offensive play, basically saying no one on offense is playing particularly well, not doing enough. And that includes Najee Harris. Tomlin referenced the foot injury that Harris suffered on the first day of pads in training camp that probably pushed his development and, ability to hit the ground running literally this year and pushing that back some. But one thing I noted, and it was right after the podcast on Monday, I was going through some of the tape, even coming into that Bills game before they got destroyed. Jaylen Warren is his team's new third down back. He is playing almost all the third down snaps, and he's been really strong in pass protection, and the team has praised him for it. And we've talked about Harris's struggles in pass pro. And so that was one change that was made coming into the game. And then Mike Tomlin basically saying that Warren's played well, his role has increased, and that will continue to occur.
Even as young as Najee is in NFL years, I remember writing, I guess, leading up to the draft process or right after they drafted him, how he technically is kind of an older back, overall, mm-hmm. and how he had a lot of, he was used quite a bit at Alabama, right? In the grand scheme of things, and then obviously in 2000 and his rookie season 2021, the enormous amount of usage and touches that he had. And, you look back historically on the running backs that hit, right around that 400 touch mark, right? How, it's not really great the next season with them. Is Najee just worn down?
I wouldn't say that. I mean,
he looks sluggish to some degree, but it's not like, and it's another thing that I me and these explosive backs, it's not like he was ever, entering the league as this, great one cut, burst through, kind of put the foot on the ground like Le'Veon Bell at times did, and make people miss that way. A lot of what he's had to do, especially at the NFL level, is run through contact.
Right. I think if he's looking sluggish, it's much more likely due to that foot injury and whatever.
Then why isn't he on the injury report?
If he's practicing in full, then he wouldn't. I guess they wouldn't have to put him on there. I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's not where he's getting constant medical attention in the sense of, he's undergoing MRIs and things like that. But it's just a thing that's he's playing hurt, not injured, I guess is the difference there.
I mean, are we going to find out after this season? Is this going to be one of the things that's going to say, yeah, that foot bothered me all season? Or is it
probably?
If he's not right and he's hurting your team, then sit him down for a couple of weeks.
I get that, but he's a former first-round pick, and they're trying to play their former first-round pick. And whether that's right or wrong, I think that's the idea that he's healthy enough to play. I mean, again, before the Bills game, the run game had been progressing. Harris had looked decent, and even against the Jets, I mean, I would say that they were running decently. So last week was, abysmal. The blocking was miserable, and Harris did a team no favors, dropped that screen pass, which could have gone for a good gain. But I wouldn't say he's worn down. I mean, he was only a 2-year starter at Bama, and then last year, I don't think that makes you worn down.
Okay, but and I'm not apologizing for him at all here, and sure. There is not really that I can see based on kind of stuff back from last year. I don't have any evidence where I can say, yeah, he looks like that foot's hurt. I'm obviously not, medical background or anything like that where I can, and I just think he looks just sluggish more than anything. Now, is the foot a component of that? I don't know, but he just, and it's not like he was overly explosive, although you go back and you do look at that 30 whatever something yard run that happened at the end of last season against Cleveland. That was a nice run by him, on the outside for the touchdown there. And then obviously the offensive line certainly didn't help him in the run game against the Bills there. I just wonder where he's at, what the truth is with him.
Sure, that's fair. I mean, but to that point, and not to excuse or absolve Harris one bit, but show me one play, one run in that game that was well blocked. I can't find one.
Right, it's tough, and when you are in a situation like that, then which is, it seems like this offensive line's been in for 3 years now, you might as well slam it up in there, and that's one thing that Jaylen Warren's doing. He's getting yards after the contact and those kind of things. And Jaylen Warren has been the better back of the two. Plain and simple, he's been a better back of the two right now at this point.
Right, and that's right. His role has increased, and especially in pass pro. Again, with Harris, his pass protection to me has been one of the most disappointing aspects of his game all season. But whenever you're running into a literal 9-man box, when you're -1, when you're running toss plays and they're blowing it up, when you're not getting hats on their linebackers and Matt Milano, a really quality linebackers running free all day, I don't care what back you have back there, you really have no chance.
Okay, within that though, we watch a lot of football throughout the week, right? I mean, watching that Bengals game the other night against the Ravens. That Bengals offensive line is not great, right? I mean, it's better than the Steelers is, but there are instances in there where Joe Mixon makes good reads, makes a cut, and gets 7 yards out of a badly blocked play.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't gone back through the all 22 to kind of be able to compare and contrast different teams and schemes. I think the Bengals have a better defined scheme that's more zone-based, and Mixon, is a solid back himself. So, yeah, again, to Harris, certainly he needs to probably be able to create more and be able to get something out of nothing. But I think people are overlooking how poorly, at least in that Bills game in particular, things were blocked up because it was a wreck.
My point is, okay, let's say Najee is, banged up a little bit there. Then why not take even more? And let's say that, you got the mentality is, we can't sit him. He's a first round draft pick. He's healthy enough to play. But there becomes a point on the graph where, are you really helping yourself by putting him out there and having him touch the ball as many times that he's touching it there, as opposed to a guy like Jaylen Warren that, when he touches the ball, better things are happening at a higher percentage with him than it is with Najee. So my point is, okay, if you want to throw him out there, then lighten his load quite a bit there and get who has been the better performing back in there more, even on first down situations there. And, maybe you in lightening the load on Najee, if indeed he's not where he needs to be physically, then maybe that combined with the upcoming bye week will get him in a place where we can see maybe a Najee of last year.
Sure, that's fair. And I think Warren's role has begun to increase. I don't think it's going to be this drastic thing where one week you're going to see a crazy movement, but as Warren continues to play well and prove himself and earn more and more the trust of the coaching staff, his role will grow, and it has. Like I said, he became the third down back. That in itself is picking up a large amount of snaps. And for Tomlin, who generally likes a workhorse every down kind of back, to basically have it by committee in that sense, a first and second down guy and a third down guy, that's pretty notable.
Have we seen Najee's ceiling as a player?
As you talk about, and as Greg Cosell talked about 2 weeks ago, he's never going to be this burner, this game breaker, this super explosive, take it to the house from 75 yards out kind of guy. So,
I didn't enjoy writing that up.
No, I'm sure you dreaded doing that. But you're right. I think, anyone who thought when you drafted Najee Harris, he was going to be, this 4-4 kind of guy, you'd be mistaken. And I know that you didn't think that, but to anyone who thought that was, the style in which he played, his ceiling is known as to what you've said and what Cosell said, kind of that physical grinder. But I don't know necessarily if I've seen his ceiling. Certainly he can play a lot better than what he's playing right now.
I think we've seen his ceiling.
Or how would you define his ceiling?
Just what you said, a grinder, a guy that, I think occasionally if he can hit the outside, I wanted to make sure, and I went back and watched some of his longer runs last year, that run against the Browns in particular, got to the outside there. I think occasionally he can give you that kind of guy. It looks like the Steelers have signed Duke Dawson to the practice squad and released Jason Huntley from the practice squad this morning.
Okay, Dawson was one of the 5 guys brought in for a workout yesterday, a slot corner. I liked him coming out of Florida, so I'm not mad at that one.
Right, for sure. So interesting move there. That's kind of reflective of kind of the health in that secondary as well, too, right?
Sure. I'm sure it is for sure about that. So then Huntley was signed, I think, right around the start of the season to the practice squad, I want to say.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's the move.
And releasing a running back too, kind of gives you an idea too that they're not worried about, Najee getting his practice reps in, or anybody, any running back for that matter.
Yeah, well, they had 5 on the team, so 4 with Najee and Warren and Snell and McFarland. That's probably good enough.
Okay.
But I think Harris at his best can be, and last year was that workhorse back, that all situations back, who could catch, who could block, who could run, at a hopefully a bit more efficient pace than where he was last year. So I think his ceiling is, even though it's not that game breaker, is still good. Obviously, we're not seeing that ceiling this year.
When you define workhorse back style in the NFL, that's more along the Derrick Henrys, is it right?
Right, an every down kind of guy, all situations. You can put him in any moment and he can meet it.
But Derrick Henry, the thing with him, man, that has stuck out about him in the past is that's the guy. That's the kind of guy that when that guy gets up in open space, he looks like a thoroughbred horse, like that perfectly built, horse that you see running the Derby there, man. Just, marvel at the way he moves for someone that size. You don't ever get that sense with Najee.
No, I'm saying to the point of, he can play 80% of the snaps and be an every down kind of guy, and not defining his style of play or the type of player or runner that he is, but just, can you block? Can you catch? Can you run? Can you do all those things consistently? Is your conditioning good enough to handle that? And Harris last year could do all those things.
All right. Well, back to the what got this started here. Do you get? Warren obviously out-snapped Harris in that game against the Bills, but it was a blowout. Kudos. If there was a good decision in that game made by on the Steelers side, it probably was to let's get Najee the heck out of this game.
I wonder what the first half. We don't have the charting back from Tom Media. That'll probably be by a Friday show. But I wonder what the first half snap totals look like. I'm sure Harris had the edge, but I wonder by how much.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I don't have it. Tom's on vacation, so.
Yeah, it's probably 2-1. I would say the snap count in Harris's favor in the first half, and then as the blowout, happened more and more, Warren basically ran the whole second half.
The takeaway here is we need to see more Warren, right?
Yeah, I'm not mad at it, but I'm not giving up on Najee either. And call me naive. I just feel like what he showed last year, and given that he's probably dealing with a foot injury this year, I'm not trying to, take Najee Harris behind the shed, All
right. I view it more as moving forward. It should be more of a thunder and a lightning type thing.
Okay. That's fair. Warren has deserved everything he's gotten. That is all earned, not given, undrafted rookie. I love watching the guy play. His effort, his tenacity, his mentality is off the charts, and his pass pro for a rookie in ID, in execution is pretty special.
And, especially if indeed Najee's dealing with something, it really should be kind of a platoon situation there. And, definitely put Warren in there at third down. I don't think it's too big for him at this point.
No, I'm with you there. So we'll see how it looks against the Bucs, and running on Tampa Bay will be a challenge. They got a good front. They got big old Vita Vea in the middle, and that's going to be difficult.
All right, what else from Tomlin? Because we kind of mashed two things together there, I think, with talking about Warren and Najee there.
Really, to me, there wasn't a lot left. Do you want to touch on the Ryan Clark comments and the whole endless news cycle that's been created off of that?
It's what happened isn't breaking any ground. We write about things that national people say because they get amplified and it becomes talking points, whether you like it or not. It's not shocking that another major media reporter took what Ryan Clark said into the locker room to get a reaction. That's what they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And,
which to me is fine. That was a valid thing to say.
Right. He said this. What do you think?
Right. It's not just somebody. It's Ryan. It's not like
Clark,
me or
you saying it.
Right. It's not even Stephen A. Smith. It's Ryan Clark, a guy that knows Tomlin well, of course, played for Tomlin. That carries more weight than, say, again, a Stephen A. or Max Kellerman still on there, saying something like that. I
like Ryan Clark. I think Ryan Clark speaks from the heart. He's obviously knows the culture and all like that. Look, go back this several weeks ago, the pivot and that interview with Mike Tomlin was one of the all-time greatest, that you will see with Tomlin, I think. And I think he tries to keep it real to some degree, but I also think Ryan Clark, and I think Matthew Marksey did a great job on the site this morning. It just happens to be Ryan Clark's birthday today too. and Matthew Marksey lined him up. And when Matthew Marksey finds himself a hot button, he gets on it, brother. And he did it in this one. And, in so many words, Ryan Clark makes himself the story, botches it, blames the media after declaring Steelers gave up. I thought, did did Ryan Clark flat out say players quit? No, but he used every other word but that, in it. So here's the main thing. Who cares about the reporters and the media people? I think these guys have got to do a better job at answering these questions. And it became more of a story when the way Deontay answered that question, of I don't care about RC. If he wants to, come in here and help us out, he can't, that kind of way, instead of using the Nuke LaLoosh, Bull Durham cliches, whenever you're down like this team's down right now, and we, as fans of the team and as bloggers who cover the team, and you just kind of wince at times. You wish they would get very vanilla in the responses as part of digging themselves out of this hole, instead of throwing gasoline on the situation. And I kind of view, and I know Deontay's not purposely doing it, but maybe get trained a little bit better in how to handle this kind of stuff, where it's not easy to be viewed as eliciting another response back from the other side, if you know what I'm saying.
I mean, I always support and appreciate players who are candid and honest and avoid the cookie cutter answer, because it's just beneficial for us. And I just appreciate a more honest answer. But there are times when you have to know when a reporter is trying to poke the bear and just trying to get a response out of you. And you got to shut those things down with those canned answers, and, give your honest answers and assessments in other ways that won't come as across as big headlines the way that this became.
Right. So, I mean, you don't fault the players in the game as far as talking about, the media doing what their job. And Tomlin said, look, he's paid to commentate, and I would imagine that was addressed to some degree, this week by Tomlin. Look, don't give these guys more to chew on. They've been
doing it all season. They've been giving us a lot of chew on.
Right. I mean, your play is enough for them to chew on. Don't give them the extra fire back response that's going to let them, the further they get away from the game, give them something else to talk about until the next game takes place. You know what I'm saying?
Right. To Matthew's point, though, I mean, with Clark, when it makes that comment, that's fine. But then he gets all defensive about it when somebody else, says, hey, Clark said you guys quit. Did you guys quit? And then Clark goes, oh, I didn't say that. Yes, you did. You said the team gave up. I mean, what more do you want? You're saying the same thing. And then he just keeps amplifying the story that could have gone away in an hour. And now it's still a story today. So that was just a little hypocritical to me for Clark to say,
sure,
it shouldn't have been a story. Analysts shouldn't have asked coach the question. Let me talk about it 800 times and make it even a bigger story.
And here we are talking about it. Right. You and I talking about it on a Wednesday. And I just, Deontay should have said something. Look, it's his right to have that opinion there. We don't think that we quit, or I didn't quit. And, and then quickly shift it to, we're going to do what we need to try to do to dig out of this. So people don't think that we quit.
After watching the tape, do you believe the Steelers quit, or, to use Clark's term, gave up?
I think there were certain players that didn't necessarily give their all later in the game.
I know that one rep by Claypool that I posted last night was pretty ugly. I think on the whole, though, even for Claypool and other reps, I would not say this team, broadly speaking, gave up.
I wouldn't either, but I would also say that there was not 100% given on every play by probably a handful.
Okay. But hopefully this team gets to play competitive football, because, as I noted, I believe after Monday, this team has played a lot of non-competitive football. The crazy stat that I just happened to stumble across was from 1991 to 2020. There had only been 2 games in which Pittsburgh trailed by at least 23 points at halftime. Over the team's last 12 games, it's happened 4 times. So they've doubled 30 years of history. in 12 games, which is, to me, as damning a stat as you could talk about when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right. Yeah. Look, I mean, they haven't clicked on offense in some time, and even going back to last year, it was kind of it felt kind of driven by what Ben Roethlisberger wanted to do.
Right. Yeah.
You look at that Vikings game. You look at you could go down the list of some games, trailing in the first half, and at least, it got respectable to, drawing plays up in the sand, if you will, even though it's technically not what they were doing, but it sure felt like it at sometimes, right?
Right. So, this year it's been miserable in basically all the ways.
Yep. And now all of a sudden you've got a good team coming to town in Tampa, and if you make mistakes, especially on the defensive side of football, when it comes to a guy like Tom Brady, he might not throw it over the mountain like Josh Allen did, but he will burn you up underneath, and there will be big plays, and you just can't have some of those errors take place.
Anything else from Tomlin? Was asked about Kenny Pickett's first start and seemed to be generally pleased by Pickett's, first start, but understanding that no one played well enough when you lose 38-3 to 3.
Right, exactly.
All right, I think that probably
he announced it. What we already knew or expected. If Steven Sims is healthy, he's going to be the return man. What else did he say in there? I think we got the bulk of it there. It said no new updates on TJ Watt. That's not surprising there. Talked about Tom Brady and how he's doesn't see anything different from him being 35 or 45, and gave some good praise to Byron Leftwich. That was good.
Right.
Talking about Byron Leftwich and Larry Foote and a couple other former Steelers that have gone into coaching careers, Deshae Townsend and Nick Eason, those kind of things there. So I think we got the most of it out of the way there.
All right, Dave, let's jump into the all 22 of this Bills game. As painful as it is to go back and watch, is there anything new that you learned about this loss, about this game, either way, positive, negative, when you go back through the film?
Offensively, some of the things that we hit on, just they're a better pass blocking team than they are a run blocking team for sure. There's just not, you don't see the kind of the creases or the washouts or some of those things that even you look around the National Football League on any game that you turn on, usually you see at least one or two plays where maybe the parts like the Red Seas, or you see it, something get washed out one way or the other. That was obviously stuck out even more. Simple things like take the Kenny Pickett interception, for example. 2 plays earlier, they ran the same damn play, same personnel, didn't even really change up the formation or anything. And I know why they went back to that play. It's because Kenny probably thought and Canada probably thought he should have went to Deontay on that first kind of that hole shot, if you will, over the top there, because the corner did not sink or anything like that. And I think initially on that first time, the corner played up on Deontay, and that helped give Deontay ability to separate in that one. And on that play in particular, Kenny looked that way, decided not to go that way, and then checked it down to Najee. He took a profit on a play. It's a 1st and 10 play, right? And I think they got 6-7 yards or something on that play. But 2 plays later, they didn't even change anything up and went back to that same thing. And the only thing that separated that was the Von Miller play, really. Within that, it was another 1st and 10 play. They went back to the same play again, and Kenny almost kind of forced the football. The corner played off in that situation. It was kind of telegraphed, I think, at that point. And the corner sank, and it made for an easy interception there. And when you look at the design overall, why wouldn't you come back if you're going to, because there was not really, it was a late release. I think Freiermuth was on that side overall over there. And he's kind of chipping before he releases. So that kind of slows down his part in the play. Why not make a more concerted effort to immediately get Freiermuth maybe off the line, or put someone in the slot there and run a quick out or something, a quick release that makes that corner hold up underneath, especially when he's playing off, give him something to respect in that situation. There. That's one thing that when going back through the film, and yeah, it's late in the first half, and you hurry up and you want to try to move in that situation. But what was your thoughts on those two plays, or did I hit it?
No, I think you hit it perfectly. And now you had a tweet that showed the two. I mean, going back through it, they ran that play not just those two times. They ran it probably a dozen times in that game, in the sense of it was the same concept where the back of the tight end would check and chip release. You had the slot receiver basically running a bender, and then the two outside receivers, they're running based off of leverage. So the routes were occasionally different just based on how the defense was playing it, but it's the same scheme. It's the same play call, essentially. And they ran that. I'll have to do a cut up of it like I did a couple weeks ago. They ran that, honest to God, probably a dozen times in that
right game. But how many times with the same personnel and same formation?
I'll have to go back and check that, but from what I just kind of observed without charting it out and padding it fully, it was pretty similar the whole way through.
Okay.
I'll need to go back and check it to nail that stuff down, but I mean, I can tell you they were running very similar stuff. And that's to my point I've talked about with this offense. It just feels so pared down. It just feels so, there's 5 plays they run, and that's all they run. How many times did they run that sprint out, curl route? I mean, I literally will have a post tomorrow that talks. I went back through every single offensive snap this season to chart how many times they've run that. The play I'm talking about, that's that
right.
half sprint out to the right, or it leads to the open side. It's usually to the right, but it can be to the left. They've run that on nearly 10% of their total passing plays this year. Just that one particular specific concept. Almost 10% of all their passing plays. It's 20% of their second and long plays. I mean, I guess it kind of works, but it's just so predictable. It's so boring. It's so bland.
They're not so building JV. Up. It's okay to
right.
have. It's
right.
okay to have 10 plays, but and we've talked about this over the years. In fact, the more that you can run that looks the same, that isn't the same, the better. Right.
Right. But they're not doing that. They're not
right.
building off of anything.
Right. They're not building off of everything. They're just, they might change a route on one side or something like that. But I mean, for the, I mean, it is basically the same thing there, and they're not building off of that. And not only that, what they are running, they're not executing very well on top of it. And that compounds it.
They ran that sprint out against Buffalo 6 times just in the Bills game alone. It's always in second and long. It's never in, it's rarely in short yardage situations where actually that would be most effective, because it's a 5-yard type of play. You're not going to get 20 yards off of that play. So, and then to the point that you're talking about, that concept where they're running it basically on back-to-back snaps, which they ran, I'm pretty sure, another 10 times in that game. I mean, it feels like this playbook is so watered down. And that was with Trubisky, and now it's with Pickett.
And sure, you got him when the corner was playing up, and you had Pickett should have thrown that ball, shouldn't he, on the first one of the two?
Yeah, I think that's fair. But then you go back to it, the defenses are going to adjust. They see what's happening,
right?
And so you're not
and
fooling
he played
anybody.
Off,
right? And he sunk, and he picked it off,
right? And there was nothing. If you're going to do anything in that situation, even if a quarterback has to check to it, can't you? You got to have a route over there that makes him respect the underneath, right?
Right, because that check release is coming. So, like, what was the down and distance on the interception?
1st and 10 on both of them. First
so,
and 10.
Mean, it's not like it's 3rd and long, but still.
Right. I mean, I wasn't so mad that you run it the first time in that situation and you had it, and okay, the quarterback didn't chose not to throw it. He took it's hard to get on the quarterback when he ends up taking a profit, right?
Right. I mean, that's how this offense has been built.
But it is end of half situation there where 7 yards isn't going to get it done, right? But I'm still okay with the overall decision because it resulted in a profit, and that kind of thing there. But then to go back from it because I can guarantee you Canada saw it up in the booth, and he says, "Oh, Kenny, you got to hit that."
Yeah, and 100%.
And then he's saying, then he can't wait to get back to it again because it is the end of half situation in there. And you think, man, if we can bust an explosive play here, we can get 3 points out of this, maybe, and go in with something positive there. But I guarantee that, excuse my French there, that he is up there in the booth. And maybe this goes back to what you said the other day, right? Maybe getting Canada out of the booth might help in there.
We want him to see less. We want him to see less of the field.
Right. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong there. He saw that. He saw Kenny should have took it. He went back to it 2 plays later, and he probably said, Kenny, throw it this time. And
go back to week 2. Remember that wheel route that Pickens ran down the right sideline? Right. They didn't hit it at first. They go right back to it. And the Patriots defend it, and they cover it, and I think it was a sack on that play. Canada sees this stuff, expects the defense to do the same thing again, not adjust to it. He calls it immediately, not even later in the game where it's a quarter, 2 quarters later when the defense might have kind of forgotten about a lot of games to be played. And he's, as you said, he's so quick to go back to this stuff that, and he doesn't dress it up any differently to try to fool the defense that he gets burned by it.
Right. He doesn't change one aspect of it or formation and try to run the same thing and because literally in that second play on the interception there. Now it was a bad decision. I'm not excusing Kenny in this. But
as you said, Canada's telling him, "Hey, Kenny, throw it here. This is what the corner's doing," and so Kenny's listening to that. Right.
At least. And they adjusted. There has to be some sort of check in there or sight or something, or you just literally got to say, okay, run that same thing again. But Frymouth, you got to release quickly and get to the out there. But even in the down distance time situation, there is the corner going to respect that as much underneath. He's going to take that 7 yards again, all you want. You're not gonna. I just saw this. And he had Deontay if he wanted. I'm not gonna let that happen again. So I'm gonna pay less respect to the underneath, and I'm gonna sink a little bit more because I'm not gonna let him hold me here.
Exactly right. You're gonna let him take the underneath throw with time running out. Go back and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm doing this off the top of my head. Remember, one of the first clips you posted was that over route that Claypool wanted Pickett to throw it. And he got a little upset about that. Is that not the same concept too? Are you able to go back? Do you know where that plays at? Because you processed this a bit better than I have. You have the clip pulled up?
I watched so much stuff last night, I had to reboot my computer. I don't have it pulled up right now.
Let me see if I can find it because I'm pretty sure that's the same concept. To go back to my point of they ran that idea, a dozen times in that game.
All right, see if you can pull it because I've got. I'll have to pull the file again because I had to reboot this morning here.
I think I only have it from. Or no, hold on. I think I have it. This is good. This is good podcasting. I know. I apologize, but I want.
We're trying to make a point here, so the listeners know as well.
Right.
We kill time at times.
Yeah, so the coverage is different, but just focusing on the actual routes that are being run. And this is Pickett taking the profit, hitting Gentry.
Didn't they go middle of the field open on that one or no?
No, it was cover 1 or cover 3, middle of the field closed. But I sent you the clip.
Okay, let me look real quick.
You tell me if that's the same as the other 2 plays that you're referencing, the play before the Pickett interception and the actual Pickett interception at the end of the first half. I'm pretty sure it's the same.
Yeah, it is.
That same personnel, right?
Right. The only difference is that is middle field closed, whereas
right. But putting that aside, I'm just offensive conceptually.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Right.
that's it.
So that's at least 3 times. And like I said,
Right.
I promise you they ran. I mean, occasionally the outside receivers would side adjust and the routes would be a bit different based on leverage. But with the backs and the tight end coming out, the slot receiver running a bender, number one's running vertical to some type of route. They ran that a dozen times. I'm not even joking when I say that. I need to cut this up. I will cut this up.
How could and even Gentry checks and then releases.
Right.
Maybe it's a little bit different kind of and really the only thing that kind of sets this apart more, I think, is the fact that this is cover 3. It looks like, or maybe it is cover 3 in this situation there, whereas the other 2 might have been a cover 1 situation.
Right, but putting the defense aside, what is the play call? What is the play being run?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Yeah.
And if I swear, if you go back,
and the same damn direction too.
Yeah, like I said, when I say it's the same thing, I'm not kidding. It's the same thing.
You know,
this offense runs 6 plays.
It's one thing that I oftentimes like to see, and it probably plays into the heads maybe of the coordinators, is when you do this in 2 different quarters where it's run the different direction, then maybe you mix up the personnel on top of it. So, but it's not like we're breaking any ground here in the fact that a lot of coordinators will run a very limited packages of stuff. It's just about the lipstick on the pig.
Right. But I've never seen it to this extent where you're seeing the same play over and over and over. I mean, you can watch it. I know this is on, because the way OCs call things is based on down distance and line of scrimmage. And this
is about the same area of the field.
This is about the same thing too. Yeah,
35, because wasn't it? What were the other 2? Wasn't those at the 35 and 45?
Najee might be right. I have to try to see if I can find.
Let me pull the playbook, because it's easy to find on
just find the interception.
Because find the interception, and it was a 1st and 10 on I think like the 35 and then the 45, wasn't it?
The interception came 1st and 10 on the Steelers 37.
Okay, 37, and then the 47.
Right.
Or 27.
27.
Okay, so it was a 27 and the 37.
So basically, what Canada is calling these between the 20s, basically middle of the field, open space. This is when he calls it. And I know that because as soon as they hit the 20 or right around the 20, the high red zone, the play calls change. Those plays have gone away. And so this is Canada's base call over and over and over and over again between the 20s to get in the red zone occasionally, and then the play calls change. And so I can feel him work through his card, and it is just so limited and so frustrating. And I said it before back in week 2. I'm going to say it again. This has to be the easiest team to game plan for, because the tendencies are just that obvious.
And they're not going to sharpen it up because of a rookie quarterback in there.
Right. As I said before, you thought Trubisky lacked freedom. Wait till a rookie gets in there. And that's why they're running into 9-man boxes, because Pickett can't check out.
Okay. I mean,
so that's my rant.
I think we made a pretty good point there.
And I'm going to cut this up. Because the number of times they ran this concept, it feels like a high school offense.
Here's the thing. You process what you see. I study tape. We obviously don't have the same processes that we do in this. And you usually process what you see as far as matching things up. I bounce between charting a lot of times and watching the tape in that, and then that I get the aha moment like maybe 24 hours after you do. Okay. But the thing is if I catch something like that because look, I watch the TV tape twice generally. I fly through the all 22 real quick one time, and then I go back in more detail on both sides of the ball on that. You probably do it differently in that. I caught these back-to-back plays on the first flyby.
Okay.
In the all 22, and if I'm catching it there, then it's quite obvious.
Right. Yeah, you're 100% right in your assessment of those 2 plays. I would just add on to that and say that this was a reoccurring concept and issue throughout the entire game.
All right. What about the run game?
As I said, I thought the run blocking was really poor. Obviously, game script got them out of it before halftime, but the first run plays a toss, and I think Gentry's split was too wide. Miller blows it up, pushes back Dan Moore. It ruins the timing, the flow. Harris is ahead of his blockers, has to slow down. Milano's coming in free backside. Chooks can't make the block. You got four Bills players on two Steelers blockers. Milano, again, was running free all day. I think Pittsburgh's issue, generally speaking this year, and specifically in that Bills game, was they're not getting guys, not getting hats the second level. Linebackers are running free. They're getting decent first level movement, not in the Bills game, but prior to the Bills game, against the Jets, against the Browns, against the Patriots. But they're not getting guys to the second level, and that's one reason why this run game may occasionally get 5 yards, but they're not getting 10 yards because the linebackers are just too free.
This offensive line, the way they run block in the scheme that they're using, they need a speed back in here that can bust one.
Yeah, I think it benefits any offense, but
they particularly need it because they're just trying to grind it.
They just need to block these linebackers. Whether it's a speed back or a power back or any
but
back,
they're not going to be able
to
do that with this group of five.
They can do. I wouldn't say that they can.
Okay.
If you tell me an offensive lineman can't climb the second level and get to a linebacker, then you need new offensive linemen. You don't need a new linebacker.
That's my point, but it's not going to obviously happen now.
Right. Sure. But I don't want to say they're incapable of that. I just think there's work to be done there. They were improving. This run game was taking some steps. Not as quickly as they needed to be, but
yeah. But I feel like you've lessened your quality assurance of the Ritz cracker now.
You think I'm down to a saltine?
Yeah, I think you're dealing with Walmart with great value version of the Ritz cracker.
I thought on the first level they'd been doing a good job of securing and controlling and washing guys.
It's been so long since you've actually had a Ritz.
Right. That's fair. That's a fair point. And it's just, they need to be better. I'm not defending that. I was just saying they were showing some progress. I thought they took a pretty big step back against the Bills. And the Bucs will be tough to deal with.
Especially with White, right?
Yeah, and Vita, is it Vita Vea? Vita Vea?
Yeah, White, I think, has really been, at first blush playing pretty good for them this year.
Yeah, at least one Devon linebacker is playing well. How about that rep? Did you see that rep I posted before we got on the podcast of Devin Bush just never taking a step forward on a block on a run play?
Yes. Yeah.
I think he's been better playing more downhill, but you just get these weird moments where he just freezes, and it just, I don't know if it's paralysis, the analysis, or not.
I think there's moments where he just don't want that contact. He don't want to go up and you got to want it, man. You got to.
I hear you.
Vince Williams wanted it, man. He had no problem on taking on pulling guards or guards coming to the second level, and that's not what Devin likes to do. Devin made his career of playing sideline to sideline and blitzing at college.
Yeah, that's fair. But just come downhill. Just take a step forward, my dude. It's kind of, you can't even do that. And again, I think he has been better in terms of doing that this year, but you just get some really bad moments I don't see from anybody else.
Yeah, well, you only got about 12 more games to worry about that, I think.
Anything else from the tape? Anything else you want to go over? Pass game, secondary play? Defensively,
they did try something. There was some inverted stuff in there, weren't there?
Inverted cover too.
With Millette on the outside, and it actually worked, I think, a time or two in there. It's just collectively, they could not get any pressure, and they tried to blitz. They tried not to blitz. They just could not get any pressure on Allen whatsoever. And what'd you think about that? What'd you think about the two big runs in that game? The one to the Bills' left side, there were Leal standing up and then his initial break on the play was to the opposite went against the grain as even the way the offensive line. And look, I think Leal had a fantastic, well, not fantastic, but he was defensively stood out the most from a positive aspect there. What happened on that play?
Which play is that? Is that first half?
Oh, I think
I know you're asking about the Cook touchdown, but I'm trying to remember the first one. What is
talk about it was a run left by, I think, Singletary.
Yeah, if you can get a timestamp or some approximation in terms of the Cook touchdown.
Was that Anderson?
I know you had mentioned that Monday. Anderson trying to squeeze down on that. I mean, no one got off a block up front. They were pretty washed down. Good. Minka missing the tackle. I think Anderson, though, you'd like him to squeeze that better. I don't know if I would put that all on him, but it was a component of that play.
Okay. And I'm trying to remember. That was an explosive play, the second one that I'm talking about. If not, it was damn near close to it. It
was a Singletary run?
I think it was. Wasn't it 7:53 in the second?
Oh, for 23 yards. Oh, yeah, where Cam had to come down and make that tackle. I know which one you're talking about. Let me go back. I don't know if
watch Leal on that play.
Hold on. I'm trying to find where exactly this is.
It would be so nice if look, we're thankful that we have the all 22 and we can watch it on VLC and all like that. But how great would it be able to just be able to click to the play and go right to the go right? Because I have to make tons of notes now where I put timestamp of the VLC because obviously we don't use Game Pass and we don't just click on the play and go right to where it is on the tape.
Right. I have the play. What are you asking about or commenting on Leal?
Just look at the overall lineup of the defense there. I mean, they're outmanned on that side anyway. And watch Leal initial reaction on that play.
Yeah, well, what this is a blitz, and so Buffalo's catching Pittsburgh in a blitz. Every time they had Leal as an off-ball linebacker, they're running this nickel blitz with Leal looping across.
So he's supposed to loop on that regardless. Then
yes, they're anticipating pass and Buffalo counter as well. So I know that looks bad, but if you go back and watch, I can send the other clips as well. This is every time they had Leal off ball, it's Millette off the corner, Leal loops around, Hayward slants down backside contain away from the blitz, and so that's not to me on Leal.
Okay, all right.
But it is bad. And then you got Trey Norwood missing the tackle, and Cam Hayward has to run this one down to make the play.
Okay.
But, yeah, I mean, I thought Hayward played well. I mean, in terms of a decent game, no pass rush, unfortunately. But I mean, I thought he was one of the best defensive players. Yeah, I thought they were doing some stuff where I think they were trying to scrape, and so I was trying to figure out their assignments and stuff. Millette, man, I wish this guy was a linebacker, like a true linebacker, because he plays to run so well, so hard. He just can't cover to save his life. He's a weird player. He's this weird niche role. I love his intensity, love his energy, love his fight. He just can't. If he has to turn and run, God help us all.
Right. Going to be interesting. I guess the other piece of news that I guess was expected is Casey is now off the suspended list. And hopefully, we don't know. And Mike Tomlin wasn't asked about this on Tuesday.
Today would be the day if he's going to.
Yeah,
work, right?
and it. I mean, at least return to practice, but we haven't heard anything yet on that. And I would think now it's 11. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out here in a little bit here. But anyway, I think that's a guy that once you get him healthy and back in things, if he's not too far behind the moving train. Maybe you use a few. Maybe you use three safeties a little bit more.
Yeah, they need all the help they can get. All right, Dave. Anything else from the all 22? Not from the tape, but Presley Harvin's numbers. Any way you slice it, really poor and average. Some punt Twitter account has an EPA expected points added metric, and Harvin ranks 31st. In that category, so
I'm not surprised. I mean, it matches. It matches the eye and the sniff test of it. Look, I kind of wondered. I got beat up a little bit about it last season when they had Waitman there, and because of everything that Harvin was going through there, they may have made the wrong decision there.
Well, Waitman in that study was not a whole lot better, to be fair.
Okay, but Waitman has seemed to be the better punter of the two.
He also gets to kick in Denver, which doesn't hurt. But I agree. I think Waitman has been better. I'm not arguing that. But to the here and now, long
term, Waitman probably wasn't going to be the answer anyway. But now at this point, right now, how much longer do you let this go before you change that component of it? And it's not like it's an expensive component to change. Now there is the whole mechanism of how much is this going to mess up Boswell? And look, even Christian hasn't had his best season, I don't think, with some of these snaps.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, you want to talk about willing to overturn some stones here. I would start with some of these cheaper stones.
I think at the least, not that it's going to be the cure-all, but just sign Jordan Berry. He's on your practice squad. Boswell knows him as the holder. Good relationship there. If Harvin's not getting the job done, I mean, you got to make some changes if you're Tomlin. You can't just run this whole thing back after getting beat 38-3. And I'm not saying Harvin or not Harvin's going to fix all these teams' problems. It's not high on the list of problems, but it is a problem and not a small one to me when your punter is struggling the way that Harvin is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, you talk about trying to dig out of the hole, but ain't nobody doing any digging.
Right. And you got to win field position. I mean, if you got to do anything as a team, you got to have good field position to give yourself a chance when your offense struggles, when your defense needs a lifeline. And although it's a pretty broad stat, opponents have the second best starting field position of any team in football against the Steelers right now. And that's not all on Harvin. That there's a lot of components to that, but it is partially reflective of your special teams play.
They reminded they let Barry go off the practice squad.
Right. Yeah. I know he's not there, but you could bring him back. He's still sitting out there. I mean, he's a phone call away.
Right. Well, I mean, the moves look like they've been announced for today, especially with the practice squad shuffle. So he ain't walking through that door today, I don't think.
No, I'm not saying it. I don't know when it would happen, but if you wanted to make a change, and to your point about is there concern about the holder relationship, which is very valid, but
at least
he bring Barry back.
Right, and he's got experience and has worked in that capacity before. So we'll find out maybe in a little bit more about, or by the weekend, I guess, on Calvin Austin or not. I'd put him on the fast track.
Yeah. I think some changes have to be made, and Harvin has played poorly through a year and a half. And I understand last year the issues that he had, but at some point you gotta produce. He's not producing. I
mean, the way things sit now, other than injury dictated, it's not gonna look a lot different from personnel standpoint this week. It don't sound like. I mean, nope. We can sit here and say they need to get Mark Robinson a helmet and get him in, but there's nothing to indicate that that's going to happen.
Does Calvin Austin get activated?
That's what I said about Austin. I would fast track him, even if he only knows 2 of the 4 plays. We joked there to that might have went over your head there, but
I was muted for a second. I'm sorry, I was laughing.
But I would fast track him, and you've got to do something right now in this offense. And I've screamed this for several weeks now because of the yak or lack thereof. You got to start doing some things with some quick slants and those. You got to get the ball in players' hands, moving in space, because you're going to have to throw short and run long.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, do something a bit different overall, but I think big picture, those are all on the margins, and it's not going to change all the big problems this team has. All right. So on that note, anything else to talk about?
Well, we got people jumping off probably out at the hot metal bridge right now, don't we?
Probably. Last thing before we get to some reader emails. How much do you think Kim Haywood is regretting doing a podcast right now? He has to just be like, why did they make this decision?
Yeah, and we didn't we kind of talk early on at how maybe this can become, kind of an albatross, if you will, around his neck there. And I understand why he's doing it, but it's not great to be doing it. It can't be great to be doing it right now, especially some of the things that almost are so topical that he has to talk about.
Yeah, he led off his last show with obviously the Bills loss, and not that I want to give this much oxygen because I basically take Haywood at his word, but He had that retweet he sent out that he claimed was a butt retweet that, basically called for Tomlin's firing and had to apologize for.
There were several things in that tweet that he retweeted. And that's why sometimes, and we know this from experience over the years, you think that you might know what they mean in one tweet and it ended up being lyrics of a song, or they might have had other intentions involved in the retweet. So it's very hard from that aspect to know what actually, if indeed it was not an accidental retweet of what part, especially something that has I think 3 components to it that he retweeted. For all we know, maybe he was more upset with the Ryan Clark sucks comment or whatever what was in there, Yeah,
but if you wouldn't consciously retweet that if you saw the first part of that.
And maybe, I don't know. It obviously wasn't a good look.
The optics were terrible. I believe.
And then having to spend part of a podcast explaining it.
Right. I don't believe that Hayward purposefully, read that tweet, understood that tweet, digested that tweet, and then decided to retweet it. I think it was either a total accident, which I've occasionally done when my phone has accidentally retweeted something, or that he saw the back half of that, quickly retweeted it, and didn't realize the first part of what that tweet was saying.
He had some. He's still I don't doubt him as a leader or anything like that. Obviously, a stand-up guy and all like that. But you're at it, and if they lose, if they get blown out by the Bucks, it's going to be harder to hit record on that microphone even more, because you're talking about, and the problem is he's having to talk about things that he wouldn't have probably expected that he's talking about right now, and that makes it even tougher.
Yeah. So, all right, Dave, let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
Let's see here.
I know we probably still have a lot to go through.
Yeah. What did you think about my 1991 butt punt?
I didn't know that was ever a thing. That was a cool little piece of history. How did you remember that? Did you just happen to come across that? What's the origin story?
There was another tweet that kind of triggered me onto it. That I saw that somebody say, well, that technically wasn't necessarily the first time. And then I went down the rabbit hole. Yeah, I've got a subscription to newspapers.com where we can go back in the archives and read up on some of that stuff. And obviously with more and more stuff on YouTube, you can find some older games, or at least ESPN. And anyway, I just started going down that rabbit hole in that, and pulled up the old game book on it, and I wasted a lot of time is what I did.
You had fun with it. It was a good article.
But that's what I do. And I got 3/4 through that thing, and I said, you know what, let me go look at the rosters for both teams, see if because obviously I was, live 91 and all like that, and see if I recognize any names on the Patriots squad and all like that. And saw that there was a H. Colon playing safety for the Patriots. I said, oh no, that's too good to be. There was a guy with the name Colon playing in that started for the Patriots in a butt punt game. And then I said H. Colon. So of course I have to find out who H. Colon is. Harry Colon.
You cannot make this stuff up.
No, you absolutely cannot. So I had, at that point, the 10-year-old Dave took over, which 10-year-old Dave hangs around quite a bit, more than you probably think. And 10-year-old Dave plays a big part in 54-year-old Dave's life on pretty much a daily basis. But 10-year-old Dave just had enough and had to walk away for a little bit there. But entertaining. I try to have a little bit of fun with it, especially with all the gloom, despair, and agony right now.
Right. Yeah, a little bit of levity is always good. I wonder why they have upbacks on the same side as the punter's foot. Maybe they should change that. There's always the right upback.
Lesson learned, right?
So,
and the funny thing is, Ernie Mills was just a rookie back then, and Ernie Mills went on to have obviously lengthy career and caught a lot of almost 200 passes during his career. He it was the third game of the season, I think. That he didn't even have as much as a catch at that point in the season, and His first NFL touchdown is officially in the books as a 0-yard return.
Yeah, off of a butt punt. That's really cool.
Off of a butt punt. So there. Now you know the rest of the story. The end.
I see what you did there.
Mario Brunell writes in, this is a pretty good podcast up until this point, isn't it?
I think we had a really good conversation talking about the Canada play calls and what we were seeing on that play. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's that literally is just two guys talking football right there.
Mm-hmm.
Mario writes in, hello, gentlemen. How much do you think it would help to incorporate a short passing game on early downs? I think throwing to set up the run would help the O-line and maximize Kenny's accuracy. Let me tell you, there's nothing wrong right now with Kenny's accuracy.
No.
You would agree, right, Alex?
It's the best trait of his game, or one of them.
Right. His adjusted accuracy percentage in that game against the Bill was 76%. And people say, you're not throwing it, more than 7 yards past. Yeah, I get it. The intended air yards was a little over 7, and his completed air yard average was over 5. You'd like the completed air yard average to be a little bit higher, but what those raw stats don't take into account are a few of those drops and all as well too. There, I mean, look, it's a first NFL start. It's okay to be critical of him and praise him on both sides of it, but let's not forget that it was his first start in all that. But I will say just what I have seen in the 6 quarters of football alone, let alone the preseason time, and what was one of the things that this team preached all offseason about the quarterback position and Kenny particularly, it was the accuracy. So I'm not worried about maximizing Kenny's accuracy right now. I don't see there's anything wrong with that. He says maximize Kenny's accuracy, which is the strength of this offense. Also, Pickens needs to be the first read, and Warren needs a regular role in this offense. I suppose you can make some progressions where, it depends on the play. I don't think you got to come out of the huddle every time saying Pickens, but I get the point there because Pickens is the one that's making plays right now there. And Alex and I obviously already addressed the fact that Warren needs a regular role in the offense. Mario says, plus Mark Robinson is sorely needed in the defensive middle. Part of fans' frustration is it feels like our best options aren't being used, going back to having Trubisky run a slogging offense. Can Tomlin shift enough to implement these changes that in my infinite wisdom have designated there? It doesn't sound like it this week, Mario, other than maybe Warren getting maybe a little bit more playing time in there. That's about as much rearranging of the deck chairs on the Titanic, I think, this week.
Yeah, we'll see what health looks like and what that allows the team to be able to do. Obviously, they're a bit hamstrung by the injuries, especially defensively and in the secondary. I mean, listen, I like Mark Robinson. I get the point people are trying to say. I'm still not really sure what his role would be defensively, what realistically, I think most people want him to replace Spillane, and Robinson is not going to be playing in dime packages trying to communicate. So if you want to give him a hat, that's fine, but he's not solving the team's problems.
All right, Bryce is back in here. Bryce is going to try to play gotcha with us, it looks like.
Okay.
Dave, I know you previously said you gave Canada a mulligan for last year, but I ain't buying that. My suggestion is this: since the teams tends to lean towards in-house hires, they should get rid of Canada by the bye week, hand the reins to Sullivan, and tell him, here's your odd. It sounds like he's, Bryce trying to play gotcha here, but it sounds like he's regurgitating everything I said on the last podcast. Here's your audition to be the next offensive coordinator, the way you get to see if the answers are in fact in-house, if it's time to go outside. A la Todd Haley to find your next OC. What do you guys think? Well, being as how you just regurgitated what I said in the previous podcast, I think you know how I stand on that. And the reason I said Canada gets a mulligan for last year is because I think he deserved a mulligan because because of the quarterback that he had and because of I'm sure that kind of what Ben wanted to do versus what Canada was. we did not fully get to see, I don't think, every aspect of what Canada wanted to do offensively. And that's what my Canada on Mulligan statement was about, was it not? And
no,
didn't you feel the same way? I mean, didn't you kind of feel like he kind of got a mulligan for last year?
Well, I was hesitant to give him a blanket pass because you're still the coordinator over a long season, but I understood that, Canada wasn't running his ideal offense last year, and I wanted to see what it looked like this year. Right, which is your point. And I wanted to see what it looked like this year. Of course, now we're in it. Now we're seeing it, and the results are ugly.
And I just said, it was the last podcast or podcast before that, look, we can sit here and scream on this podcast all day and on Twitter that the Steelers should fire Canada. Okay, I get it. And we can suggest that, and my suggestion would be that if you did see something like this, they're not going to go out in the middle of the season and hire an outside coordinator.
No team does that.
All right, so yeah, and what I stated was if they did let Canada go, that the obvious thing and why it would probably be a good reason to do it mid-season would be the fact that you're giving Sullivan enough time, half a season there, to see what he could do with this, to see if he can make the shite smell any better, and if he can't, then you can say, well, we tried him too. Now let's go outside and get an offensive coordinator.
What'll be interesting is, assuming Canada is not fired, let go, whatever you want to call it, until after the year, then what do? Sullivan, as we talked about, seems to be a logical choice, and maybe you could argue it does not matter optically. Are you going to go with another in-house hire after doing it time and time and time again? Or would you go out of house where Pickett's got to transition to a totally new OC? I wonder how the team would handle that.
It has to be as friendly to the quarterback as possible.
Right.
Now, Sullivan, from what my take on it is, a very, he knows the quarterback position. Okay.
Right. That's what he's coached.
And he has been an offensive coordinator in the league before. Now he is a little bit older. You'll probably be getting, Pickett needs a quarterback friendly guy. And if you go back outside and get anybody not named, the Pitt coordinator,
Mark
Whipple, then you're setting yourself up for it not being quarterback friendly.
I wouldn't say that. You could have a bright OC who's works with quarterbacks well. I don't think it's Sullivan, Whipple, or nobody else.
Okay. Well, you better research the hell out of it before obviously you make the hire. Make sure it is a good a marriage between what Pickett did well in college versus what his skill set, at least after his rookie season, is at that point. How much does Sullivan have to say about what I imagine that Sullivan gets tamped down quite a bit in this thing right now?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I think he has a role in developing the game plan and film study, and here's our plan of attack, but ultimately Matt Canada calls the plays on game day. I assume that's how that goes.
Okay. I mean, I'm not opposed, if you're going to make the change right now, I mean, or if it is made, it's going to be Sullivan. After the season, I think you need to open this up to at least interviewing.
Well, right, they will. Yeah, they did that for Canada.
Guys.
That's standard.
But how many times does that just end up being the dog and pony show anyway, and they end up going in-house anyway?
Well, that's my point. Sullivan may be a good option, but certainly you can argue the in-house hires have grown tiresome. And at some point, maybe it's good to go outside the organization and find someone new.
But you don't do it just to do it.
No. But I understand.
Just to get the Twitter off your back.
No, of course not. But it's valid to say, hey, maybe this team should stop promoting in-house. It's not working. That's a valid point, right?
Sure. I mean, yeah.
Just speaking very broadly. But again, that you wrestle that critique versus, well, Sullivan may honestly be the best guy. You want to keep continuity between your quarterback going into his second year and his offensive coordinator. And that will be a logical marriage.
But from where you and I sit, we don't know whether or not Sullivan would be the next, and I haven't spent a lot of time going back looking at his time at the Giants or anything on that, and offense and all like that. But even if he was to become OC in the middle of the season there, how much can you really change of what's in place at that point?
Well, I think you can change some things. You cannot call the same concept 12 times in a game. I think Sullivan can manage that. Or 2 plays apart, right? 2 plays apart. So those things, I think, again, it's the structure of the offense, the scheme of the offense wouldn't change dramatically, but the play calling, the flow of the game, the feel of the game, I think certainly could. And I'm talking more about after the season. In season, yes, you're going to go to Sullivan. There's no debate about that if a change were to be made. But after the season, what do? Do you stay in-house again and try to go down that road again, or do you go out of house? That's all I'm trying to say is there'll be a difficult balance between trying to find that right path.
Okay, well, we got plenty of time to speculate about that. Second part he's got here is until Watt gets back, should the Steelers focus more on mugging the double-A gap blitzes and stressing the middle of offensive line protections instead of relying on backups outside of Highsmith to get pressure? Teams consistently mug the double-A gap to us in this past, and I think in this past game or in the past, and I think it at least might make the quarterback bail on pockets and restrict his reads on the field to the side he bails.
It's a fair point. I've seen a little bit more of it from Pittsburgh, probably not enough. I'm trying to pull up the average third down distance, though, because if you're in 3rd and 3, it can be tougher to do. It's really, to me, stressing more about protections than it is maybe the quarterback and just how you kind of change how the offensive line can and needs to protect. But let me see if I can pull up, what is the average third down and distance opposing teams are facing against Pittsburgh. I don't know the numbers on that.
Okay. Michael Galapo writes in, hey guys, would you be able to dedicate a piece of the show explaining defensive coverages and offensive schemes? I understand cover 1, 2, and 3, but I get lost once we're talking about things like cover 6 and cover 9 and so on. Thanks for all you do. You guys are seriously the best in the business. That's so hard to do without a visual there. That's why we normally kind of say that kind of detailed defensive scheme coverages and stuff like that in like Alex videos or post on the site and all like that. I mean, because, and it's bad enough that we sit here and talk about break down a set of 4 plays that none of you can see in this show. But I think most of you I think we can color that enough where you can see it overall. But as far as detail and coverages and all like that, I know if I was listening to a podcast, I would not want to listen to a breakdown of it as much as I would like to see it.
Same, and I struggled to articulate that stuff well on the fly through a podcast audio-only format. So check out the site, check out the film rooms that we all do, check out the videos that we do. That'll be the best way. Go check out the scouting reports that myself and Jonathan and Josh do that kind of breaks down coverages and different things we're seeing from the opposition. By the way, the opposing offense is facing 3rd and 6.7 on average. That is tied for the 10th closest in the NFL. So Pittsburgh's not putting opposing defenses into many 3rd and longs, enough 3rd and longs, and that probably hurts your ability to dial up pressures and sim looks and things like that.
Okay, good point. Look, there's some great books out there. Who's the one that I turned you on to, the coverage book?
Which Chris Brown?
No, the other one. I'm not. I don't know if I have enough cord here to get around to my bookshelf.
This is an actual book?
Yeah, it is.
I'm sure it'll come to mind. I don't remember exactly who.
Cameron Soren.
Oh, yeah, from 30 Publishing.
Yeah, Cameron Soren's
He's very good.
He's very good. Writes some good stuff. They're long. They're hard reads with no moving pictures, but I think he does a good job breaking that down there.
Yeah, if you want to learn about Nick Saban and his coverages, go to him.
Right. Nicholas, and look, I mean, there's a lot of pattern matching and stuff going on now in the NFL, right? You know, there's explosive plays down, except against the Steelers. Does it seem like explosive plays are down?
I hadn't checked the numbers. I know scoring is down. At least it was after the first 3 weeks of the season. So I imagine if scoring's down, so are explosive plays, but I had not looked at the data.
Right. Anyway, Nicholas writes in, hi, David Knox. If you're reading this, you've likely survived the All-22 tape. Congrats. How much do you agree or disagree with the following statements? One, Najee Harris tries to dance and hit the home run way too often versus putting his head down and running through a defender to at least be tackled going forward. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of truth to that. There's a narrative I think floating around right now that defenses are flying downhill versus Najee versus being flat-footed with Jaylen Warren. I have not seen that.
I hadn't studied it and hadn't looked for it, so I can't really comment on it, but I hadn't gotten that feeling. And maybe because Warren's playing an A on passing downs and A late in games and blowouts when teams are playing more conservatively and playing the pass.
All right. Number two, look, we spent a lot of time talking about Najee in this podcast here. Number two, PH3 should have been cut by now and definitely should be cut after one more bad performance. We talked about that. Hard to argue with that. Number three, Mike Tomlin's biggest flaw could be his lack of recognizing his weaknesses and hiring better staff to supplement them. I mean, there's that you're not going to get a lot of pushback from us on that either, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's hired some good positional coaches. Maybe I'm a bit biased in that. I think coordinators, specifically offensively, have been not productive for him.
Chandler Stroud, happy Wednesday, fellas. Just real quickly here, I wanted to kind of talk about this receiver group here and kind of beat the dead horse here about what their major problem is. Yes, talent-wise, this could be a top 10, top 5 group league-wide. But you have what I can't disagree with and what Tony Romo called a non-quarterback friendly Chase Claypool, who's just very underachieving and seems to get lazy late in games that lacks explosive route running. A wide receiver one and Deontay Johnson makes the wildest of catches but can't catch a cold when the offense needs some juice, and a George Pickens, who I think personally has wide receiver one potential down the road but lacks in his route running tree or ability to separate really at all. All in all, I think things will get better for the group. I guess I just struggle trying to piece together why it can't make the explosive plays, even when the pass protection is improved from last year to preseason and into now, and the future is now at quarterback and is extremely accurate. Once again, happy Wednesday. Thanks for being there to carry me through the work week and bringing us always immaculate coverage there. Look, this receiving crew, overall from top to bottom right now, sans George Pickens, has been, really very, very unimpressive so far. And Deontay can make the amazing play. He still can separate, man. I mean, this guy can get separation and coverage, but the back end of that still got to catch the football.
Right. That's, again, he makes the tough catches look easy and the easy catches look tough. And that's been the problem throughout his career. It was better last year. And again, I think he gets in these slumps. I think he gets down, he mentally gets in his head, and he stacks bad plays. And that's maybe the biggest issue he's facing of all. The good news is George Pickens is getting more involved in this offense. Him and Kenny Pickett have a good connection, good relationship. Pickens' snap count has not really increased, but certainly his volume, his target share has gone way up, and that's a good sign.
What does Chase Claypool in 2023 look like in your head?
That's a good question. Again,
people forget that he's still got one more year left on his contract, and if he keeps playing the snap amount that he's playing, he's going to hit his. He's going to get himself a raise in 2023. How does that sound to you people here about to drive off the road, or if you haven't already? Chase Claypool is really on course, and really at this point, I guess it's hard to see him not hitting it. His proven performance escalator, which would give him a little bit of a raise there in 2023. So, as disgusted as probably a lot of you are right now, what does 2023 look like with Chase Claypool?
It's a good question. It's unclear. I've always gone back to who is Chase Claypool. How does he win? Where does he fit best? As an outside receiver, as you've talked about, doesn't stack guys well enough to be that consistent Z vertical threat.
You agree with that statement, though, right?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
All right.
I do. And then as a slot receiver, his route running is shoddy and pretty unrefined. He's a bigger guy. He doesn't make a lot of precise movements, and he can't really block as well as he should for his size. So he's not really a slot receiver. He's not an outside receiver. What is he? I don't know how he fits. I don't know how you best utilize him.
And then stack on the fact that you can't take some plays off like he did in that game, right? I mean, you pointed one out specifically in there, and Kenny Pickett. You should have showed the end zone view of that.
I would have, but you didn't see Claypool in it, so I probably should have showed that too. But the way I was trying to. It complicated, but good point.
Because Pickett gave him the Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, they keep running, and when he should have. I mean, he had open grass. Right. I know it's zone, but you can't settle in against zone when there's a guy right on top of you. You got to move to grass, and he didn't.
Why am I hyper focusing on this right now? Because I am starting to wonder now if it wouldn't be wise to trade Chase Claypool off for the bag of footballs.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be mad about it. I know you're saying it's a bag of footballs, but I mean, yeah, realistically, what are you going to get for the guy? Who's interested in Chase Claypool right now?
Right. I mean, could the Packers use him? Would a change of scenery maybe do him good? Would a team? What is he worth? Is he worth a fifth? I mean, is it? And the reason I've been kind of poo-pooing the idea that maybe this could be a thing is the fact that the value is in the fact that he's even after the proven performance escalator bump in 2023, it's still cheap, all things considered. And there is value in that alone if you think that you can scratch some more of his potential off in there. So giving him away for a fifth, but is he worth more than a fifth right now?
No.
Even with all of those statements there.
I think it's, can you get a fifth out of him? Not is he worth more than a fifth? Green Bay makes sense. He's kind of got the profile of a Lazard, of a Christian Watson. Rodgers generally likes bigger receivers. I don't know if there's a role for him right now in Green Bay, but I know you're just spitballing names.
And I'm not saying this is going to happen or anything, or should, I have come around more to the idea. The problem is, I mean, obviously you drafted two. Does that, in dealing him away, does that mean you got to go back in the draft next year and spend a third or fourth on another receiver?
Well, maybe, or free agent.
And
they'll have some money to play with to get more of a defined slot receiver. But I mean, the bottom line is Claypool working or is he not? If he's not working, then you got to find somebody else. And that may be a challenge, but that's a challenge you accept. You're not going to just sit there and say, wait, we don't want to go to the trouble to find a replacement, so we're going to just sit and wallow in Claypool.
And if Calvin Austin can become maybe what you think he can become, how do you even get Claypool on the field next year?
Right. I mean, I think conceptually, if we try to map out what a trade, when's the deadline? First week of November?
November 1st. It's easy to remember this year.
Right. As the Steelers kind of get into their bye week. So let's say Austin gets a hat by the Dolphins game, gets a little bit of burn just to get a feel for who and what he is. And if he looks okay, then that may provide more of incentive to deal Claypool. You got a bye week and get Austin more and more reps and see how it looks the rest of the way. So
And you can you can use Miles Boykin as the Z 6 snaps a game.
Yeah, and he plays in big packages. So, I mean, yeah, by that point, the season's probably like over, and so you're not too mad about giving Boykin some snaps and whatever practice squad you probably poach off of someone's practice squad.
If you could get a 5th right now for him, what would you do?
I'm just thinking, off the top right here, not sitting down thinking about it too
right,
in-depth,
right. Loosely, I won't hold you to unless you're wrong or about
off the top.
Here.
Yeah, I would do that. I would trade him for a 5th.
I think I would too, and I think I in this last week I have come to that come to the fact that I can say that.
I think in terms of hypothetical guys that could get traded, and I really doubt anyone does, maybe, but I think it's unlikely. I think if there's a name to suggest, I think it's Claypool. I think the idea of trading Trubisky, Rudolph are probably less likely than a guy like Claypool might be.
I think the fact that Rudolph's contract's up, and because there's still probably a team or two out there willing to pay him $4 million, $3 million, whatever, and who knows, maybe even a little bit more than that because of the quarterback position. You could probably maybe get more in the term, but the thing is, the compensatory pick runs a year behind.
Right.
So as Wimpy would say, gladly pay you, Tuesday for a cheeseburger or Wednesday for a cheeseburger. I'm butchering that one up, but for a cheeseburger today, would you rather take maybe a little later pick now instead of having to wait for maybe a round higher the year after via compensatory?
I would take the certainty of the pick now for the unknown.
Too.
It's not like Claypool's some stud where you're saying, he's definitely going to get us a 3rd round pick because we'll go sign a big contract.
I'm using that statement when it comes to Rudolph because obviously Claypool's not even a free agent until after the 2023 season.
Right. I'm sorry. Certainly with Rudolph, 100%, because I doubt you get a comp pick for Rudolph. He signs a 1-year deal for $2 million as a backup, probably doesn't play.
Well, I mean, 100%. It would play into the formula,
Yeah, I would. Again, I would take the certainty of the pick over any potential comp pick.
Are there any other? Those would be the 2 most likeliest players to get dealt by November 1st, so right?
I think so, unless you wanted to suggest a Wormley and Ogunjobi. But again, I think that some of that starts getting into the weeds of overvaluing our own players and just understanding that there's not a lot of trades that get made in the NFL at this time.
Hunter Higgins writes in, Dave and Alex, help. I have been a Tomlin defender for a long time. I've always said that he's the epitome of consistency and one of the best leaders I have seen, not just sports, but in general life itself. I would want to meet him more than any other player, I do believe, but I'm running out of ways to defend my guy. He continues to make calls that are totally in his spheres and gets out schemed more and more every week. I know he isn't the only deciding factor in the Steelers hire around him, but he definitely has a say-so. Is there anything I can still hang my hat on with Coach T to defend him remaining the Steelers head coach? What are some of the positive he still brings to the table as opposed to the other coaches in the league? Thanks, you guys roll. Hunter H. P.S. Dave, it's October, so crank up the King Diamond. You know what? At the risk of embarrassing myself right now, I'm not listening to a lot of King Diamond or anything these days. I've been listening to some Joan Jett lately.
I kind of know who that is. It probably strikes our older listeners more.
Yeah, Joan Jett. And we just watched laying in bed the other night a special on either Amazon or Netflix or one of those from a couple years ago. And I've always had kind of thing for, here's another embarrassing. I'm a big fan of the Runaways, the all girl group, in the 70s and all like that, because, Joan Jett was in the Runaways. Lita Ford. I don't know if you know who Lita Ford is. She was no idea. She's still, she became a very popular heavy metal, act in the 80s, and she's still touring in clubs and all like that today and all like that. But I've found myself recently into a lot of the older Joan Jett stuff right now here. But back to the point here about Tomlin here. No, I don't think Tomlin should be run out of town yet or anything like that. And as Alex and I have said, for quite a while now, the bumper sticker with hasn't had a losing season is old and tiring. They should stop selling those or whatnot at this point here. The fact that this team hasn't had a playoff win in several years, and uncharted territory where it comes to not having a playoff win for this franchise right now. But within that, I think this guy has done enough to deserve a chance for the next couple of years of cleaning up this mess, quote unquote, transition from a franchise Hall of Fame quarterback to new chartered territory for him. I think he's done enough that he deserves that aspect of it.
I agree with you there. I would also just say, let's just see how the rest of this year turns out. This team back in, I always get the years mixed up, 2013, started 0-4. They finished the year 8-8. Not that that's fantastic, but they turned the season around, and they were 1-3 last year. They went 9-8-1. They were 1-3 in 19. They finished 8-8, or they 1-4, maybe in 19. So we'll see how the whole season goes before we start making conclusions about this season. So I would just, not that I expect this team to turn things around, but hypothetically they do. And so I'm just taking it one game at a time. And then once the season ends or it's almost over, we can kind of look back and talk about those things more big picture.
Here's the thing with him. I think he firmly believes right now that he can still get this team somehow into playoffs. And I don't share that belief with him, by the way, but because of the state of the AFC North and everything, because look, they're what? They're 1-1 in their own division right now. On the backside of the bye is when the rest of their divisional games happen. And if there's one path that this team does have to the playoffs, it would be winning or really winning the AFC North in a very down year. I'm not, but I think he firmly believes that he could, and what, it's in his DNA to do that. But I think he firmly believes that maybe he can get this team to a playoff spot.
Yeah, I think he's not giving up on the season. I think it's less about the state of the AFC North and more about just that's how he's wired. He's always been a guy that looks optimistically. And of course, he's been generally successful over his career. And so he's always has that let's not give up mentality. And he's got to believe it, because if he doesn't believe it, then no one else is going to believe it in that locker room. And then you're definitely toast at that point. So I think Tomlin always has that hopeful edge and that thought of we're going to find a way to get back into this thing, because historically the Steelers have.
And I think it'll be fun, or not fun, but interesting to watch how he charters this thing if it does continue to go off the rails more. And can he keep this team from just outright splintering and the engine completely blowing on lap 4?
Right. Yeah, it's a weird year. It could be a year where he's going to deal with the first time this team is just bad. But if you want a path forward, I said this team has to be at least 3-5 by the bye. So they got to win 2 of their next 3 games. You want any sort of path, any sort of chance to get back into this thing, that is the path. Win 2 of the next 3.
All right. How about we end it there? How far are we into this now? Hour 45?
Just about.
All right. I know we got some more questions out there and all, but we got a lot of work to do here, and we spent a lot of time. And I think it's been a pretty good show overall, Alex. So hopefully everybody listening to it agrees there. Get by Steelers Deep. We got a lot of great content up on the site too. You got Matthew Marksey going all in on Ryan Clark. You got me writing about a 1991 butt punt. What you got, Alex?
Got my video breakdown on Jaylen Ward, his pass protection. Josh Carney's got some good stuff there on the Duke Dawson signing. And check out Jonathan Heitritter's film room on Kenny Pickett on his first career start. That is certainly going to be worth the read.
All right. Within all that, thank you, everybody, for hanging with us. And as we say, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button for $25 for a calendar year. You can have an ad-free version of the site. So until Friday, we hope to have Bucks beat writer on with us, and we'll get hard and heavy into getting people ready for the Sunday game at Acrisure Stadium against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady. So until then, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.